Right then, the TCL 20 Pro 5G. This is a full-featured flagship device with a budget price. Oh, that rhymed. But the price isn't really all that budget, and there are some compromises, of course, that you're gonna have to consider. Okay, so let's run down the specs list so you know what we're working with here right off the bat. For around $840 Canadian, which converts roughly to $680 US, although once launched in the US, it'll probably be a bit cheaper, you'll get a 6.7-inch 1080p AMOLED display, a Snapdragon 750G, 6 gigs of RAM, along with 256 gigs of internal storage, plus support for a micro SD card and a 4500 milliamp hour battery. Now, let's look at this design. Pretty standard copycat design with the thin rails, curved edges, and thin buttons, same with that tall and narrow aspect ratio, but it does still look good with that frosted glass on the back in this moon dust gray color, and it does feel like quality in the hand too. Now, a couple things that aren't so standard with this design, however, is the headphone jack, infrared blaster to use as a remote control for all kinds of devices, and of course the completely flat camera modules, which you don't see a whole lot of these days. The display's good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. I like the colors, I like the saturation, and it's got a claimed max peak brightness of 700 nits, which is still plenty visible outdoors. But it does only have a 1080 by 2400 resolution, which is fine, but at just 394 pixels per inch, when it comes to watching content or gaming, you are compromising on your viewing experience a bit. You're also limited to just a 60 Hz refresh with this display, and it feels like it has a much slower touch response time than most other displays from phones I've reviewed in the past. The in-display fingerprint reader is pretty slow too, but not just slow, pretty inaccurate. Like with most other phones, I usually get something like a 90% plus accuracy rate, but with this phone, it's been more like 30 to 40%, and not only that, even when it does work, a little message flashes that says no match, even though there clearly is a match since it'll unlock just fine. But at least we do get a legit always-on ambient display, so that's nice. The audio experience kind of sucks because we've only got a single bottom-firing speaker. It kind of gets loud enough, but it doesn't sound great. Maybe that's why they threw in a headphones jack. Now, it's running Android 11 with TCL's firmware running over top, which actually has a decent feature set with some really nice user customization options, a few themes, lock screen styles, hardware button customization like with the smart key on the left, for example. And there's a whole host of advanced features like an edge bar, a game mode, and a bunch of others. So there's a lot you can do with this phone. Like, this ain't your basic white bitch phone. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, launching apps and just general usage, there's quite a few UI bugs and performance issues I noticed that need to be dealt with, but if you jump into something that sort of forces the CPU to enter a higher state of clock speed, like gaming, it seems to perform just fine considering the CPU that's being used. Now, I've read mixed battery life claims from users and other reviewers. Some folks only seem to be getting about 6 or 7 hours of screen on time with this phone, whereas myself and a lot of others are able to get about 9 hours, no problem. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but I've personally experienced great battery life. And more to that, we do get an 18-watt quick charger in the box, so that's like what, a 70 to 80% charge inside 35 to 40 minutes, I think? I mean, it's no OnePlus Warp charger, but it's better than nothing, right? And it supports wireless charging at up to 15 watts, so that's cool. So there's a 48 megapixel main camera with OIS, a 16 megapixel ultra wide without, a 5 megapixel macro, and a depth sensor. Dynamic range isn't great. Highlights get blown out left and right, and when it tries to expose for a bright scene, I found it can sometimes underexpose. Skin tones from the 32 megapixel selfie camera are pretty good as long as the highlights on your face aren't getting completely blown out, so basically no selfies while you're directly facing the sun. Details are a little blurred, kind of like the soap opera effect, but not nearly as aggressive, if that makes any sense. Colors need a bit more contrast until HDR kicks in, and even then you really got to be careful with HDR mode and strong colors with objects like flowers, because most of the time it's just too much. See, this is one of those phone cameras that I usually have to take multiple photos with and double check each one to make sure I got something that looks at least passable, which isn't something anyone wants to be spending their time doing. All right, look. For around $650 to $680, I'm not entirely convinced this is a good value. On paper, it looks good. In person, it looks and feels good. But in practice, it hasn't been so far, at least not in my experience with it. And, you know, even if TCL improves the experience, I still don't think this is passable at that price point. I feel like there's better options out there, like the Samsung Galaxy A52, for example, which is a better phone, and it's like $100 less. So anyways, I think that's gonna do it for this one. I really hope you liked the video. If you did, maybe let me know by tapping that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. But thanks as always for watching, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Cheers.